What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video, we are talking about my Hydrosphere League starter coming to 3.21, and it's going to be amazing. So not a ton has changed for Hydrosphere going into 3.21, but we're going to talk about the things that did change, some things that got worse, some things that got better, and overall, I think this build has been a little bit buffed going into 3.21. So number one, mastery changes. This build actually wasn't that affected by mastery changes. We did lose the 10% increased life, but that did come with a downside of losing some recovery, so that's not too big of a deal. We also lost curses on enemies in your chilling areas have 15% increased effect. This ended up being a small damage increase, and it was just nice to have because your chilling areas were pretty much everywhere with Vortex, but it wasn't a ton of damage. So with that leaving, that gets replaced by enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second that they've been frozen by you. Goes up to 50% total, which is effectively a shock sort of multiplier. It takes 10 seconds to get to it full, but you really only need this on things like pinnacle bosses. You're going to find that this is a really nice single target damage boost that far surpasses the old mastery that we were using. So you won't notice it while mapping, but you definitely will against the pinnacles. This is probably somewhere between like a 20 and 30% damage increase on a pinnacle boss throughout its entire life. This build gets nice big chunky hits, so you're always freezing enemies. Another cool mastery that we're going to pick up is the evasion and energy shield mastery. This makes it so your intelligence provides a bonus to your evasion instead of your dexterity. So it basically just moves that increased evasion that you get from dex over to intelligence. And the reason that's good for us is because we have about 150 more intelligence than dexterity. So we ended up getting, I think, about 3% increased chance to evade, which is really nice. It helps you get to that cap a little bit easier. Let's talk about some new items that have been brought into 3.21. Tullfall has been hugely buffed. It looks amazing. Not for this build. You don't get a power charge if you lose your void battery and or your shield, and the value that you'd get from the Tullfalls requires that you have minimum power charges near your max power charges, or else you'll constantly be going to zero, and that just doesn't feel very good. We don't really have a way to get minimum power charges in this build, so we don't want to be cycling our power charges all the time. You want to keep those at max. So Tullfall is a no-go. Defensively, this build got a huge buff with the introduction of Ball Arctic Armor. This skill looks crazy. 90% damage reduction for a brief period of time, and it freezes you in place. Now, the value of this is on an evasion type build, we don't like to tank too many hits, but if you know you're about to get hit by something huge, click it, Ball Arctic Armor, and you're pretty much going to be able to tank just about anything in the game. So I would say in the end game, make sure that you get that into the build. You can replace one of the Herald of Ice supports, and it won't change the build too much. As of the recording of this video, Ball Arctic Armor is not in the PoB yet, because it doesn't exist in the current branch of PoB. So I can't include it, but I do have Arctic Armor in there, and I have it marked as Vol Arctic Armor, so just note that. Let's talk about a few of the problems that people ran into with this build that I want to either clarify or help you fix going into 3.21. Number one, Herald of Ice. I put a 4-link Herald of Ice with only 2 links selected into the build guide. What a lot of people did was put a 4-link Hydrosphere into their build right away as soon as they had access to it, and that was costing them too much of their mana reservation. So their mana pool was too low to consistently cast. The idea that I was trying to get across was that you only want to use as many as you can afford. If you can't afford it, take some off. So I'm going to leave the links in there, but I want people who watch this to know you don't need to put added cold or increased area of effect. You don't have the mana reservation efficiency for it. Again, you're probably going to end up replacing one of those with Vol Arctic Armor anyway in the end game, so it won't be too much of an issue, but I just wanted to point that out because I got that question an awful lot. Number 2, Vortex. How do you get your Vortex to crit? I answered that question somewhere between 3,000 and 7,000 times last league, and the reality is get more critical strike chance. I didn't switch off of Ice Spear until well into white maps, because that's when I felt like I had enough crit comfortably on Vortex to freeze just about every time. But don't switch off of Ice Spear until you're comfortable with how much crit chance you have. So if you want to switch over to Vortex as your main way of freezing the Hydrosphere, you can throw an increased critical strikes gem onto it and give yourself a huge boost to the amount of critical chance that you have on the Vortex. I find Vortex to be incredibly smooth to freeze the Hydrosphere with because we have a lot of AoE. You're always running over your Hydrosphere, and whenever you do, it freezes it. If you're going to play this build, I highly recommend you watch all 3 of the videos that I made last league. Start with the original, then on the update, and then the final video. And that'll help you get an idea of the progression of the build because I made those as I was leveling. This is not the simplest build in the world. It does require some understanding of the mechanics of Hydrosphere and Vortex and critical strike chance, but it is not difficult. If you pay attention, if you read the notes in the POB, I worked really hard on all this. So if you go through it and you really try to understand all that stuff, it should work out for you. But if you are having trouble, down in the comments, ask me there, or come over to my stream, twitch.tv/AER0__, and I will do my best to answer any questions you have over there. Also, you can jump into my Discord. There are a ton of people in there, including myself, who would love to try to help you out with whatever questions you have on Hydrosphere or any of my other builds. I really appreciate everybody's support. I got a ton more content, including my league starter that I'll be starting in 3.21. Stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel, give me a follow, give me a comment down below. If you want to support me financially, you can click on my Patreon link, which is down in the description. For as little as $3 a month, you can help me become a full-time content creator. That's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoy Hydrosphere if you play it in 3.21. And with that said, take care.